Well, then not only do we have the AWR coming down the pike, but then next year too, there will also be the auto-enroll situation for pensions with the temporary, let's call them temporary workers instead of agency workers there. Lisa, how do you anticipate the advent of that further easing or forcing the evolution of umbrella companies?
I will, absolutely. I've thought for the last 2 or 3, 4, 5 years that basically what's happening is we will be forced into a model where we will be what is considered to be like any other employer. I think umbrella companies will not exist per se. I really do believe that. I think we would just be employers. I think we're probably going to have to find other revenue streams in order to be able to keep going as an industry. I think we're going to have to do a lot more than we do now. I think it will only get worse. But I think the companies who are involved now, at the beginning of this process, will probably still be around at the end of it. But yeah, there's no question we will have to act as any other employer would.
What kind of identity will you have?
I think it's simplistic view is it's a consultancy business, a contract business. You are providing labour to complete assignments. They're your employees to fulfil that assignment, and then they go on to do other assignments. And it's a simplified version of working for KPMG or Osborne Clark. You know, they hire out their staff to do tasks, don't they? So it's a more aggregated, process-driven. That is way more aligned to the staffing business world. I think there's more we can do for staffing businesses because we replicate a lot of process in the onboarding, but obviously Stephen's already explained the risks and his view on onboarding in terms of new starters and the risk that can expose people to. So it's not an easy one, but there are absolutely elements in the process that can be outsourced, and that might be an area where we could save recruitment businesses some money and effort, because obviously we do that as a norm. It's part of our processes. So sometimes we're duplicating insurance costs, we're duplicating in other areas. So, you know, there are some synergies and there are some opportunities to get smarter. And I think we'll become, we might not be looking after the volume of workers that we currently manage. That might change ever so slightly. There might be a polarisation between the sort of lower paid world and the mid to high end world, where we're managing people on a more longer term basis. That's a possibility as well. But I think it will be very much an environment where we're playing to strengths. You know, we've got no chance of getting through any of this if we try and invade each other's spaces, so don't do it.
So do you think the umbrella companies will specialise in certain sectors?
That's a really good question, Dave. I think there's a possibility. I mean, it'd be hard for us because we touch a lot of stuff. So we could, have a subsector group, and I think that'll come back to having some careers advice or some help for those sorts of segments of data internally, if you like. So if you're an oil and gas engineer, is this in line? Have you done this? Have you done that? You know, in alignment with the requirements of the clients. But it is possible that the smaller umbrella company could become, niche players, specialists in having workers doing certain tasks and offering those out to staffing businesses. I
think it's probably more likely that there's going to be more alignment with umbrella companies and agencies, and that's probably the way it will go. Is that you'll have, like Parasol will have their 50 agencies that they work with, we'll have the 50 agencies that we work with, and it'll be a much, much closer working relationship. And probably a more solidified relationship than I think it is now.
I agree absolutely in terms of will it be driven by sector? Probably, because that happens at the moment. The reality, that certain intermediaries have good relationships in certain industrial, so we run a scheme in industrial, some are particularly higher professional staffing, pretty much where we sit. There are healthcare players that are doing it at the moment, but it'll be driven ultimately by the relationship with the client, in our case with the staffing business. And I absolutely agree with you, is that, and we're seeing this more and more as staffing businesses actually go, oh right, okay, we get it now. we understand where the value is, and touch the original point I made right at the beginning in terms of start the maturity and seeing the value in the supply chain. And staffing companies are now starting to go, right, we understand what you can do for us, so it's more than just payroll and tax avoidance. So it'll become more project-led, more true outsourcing, mitigate the risk to an assured partner. So in the post, I do think there'll be a massive change. I agree with you, the umbrellas. I think the guys who are a couple of hundred contractors in there, it's a lifestyle business, they may or may not continue in the new world. But for
they're more in the payroll sort of
well, absolutely, and the cost of doing all this, the re-engineering to true employment, it's enormous. It's because we've already started. We started several months ago in terms of what we're going to be doing post AWR. So the cost to do that is, and then the cost of taking that to market, and proving it, and giving a surety to Stevens of the world that it fits, is enormous. So we don't think everybody will have the stomach for it. They won't be in it for the long term. Some haven't been around 11 years like we have. So I think it's just another evolution of, and I think we'll see ourselves very much as an outsourced business.